بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So last week we stopped on page 278, which is the section of akhlaq, character. And we only finished the last one last week, which was truthfulness, a sip. And now on 278, Yeah, 280. We stop on page 280. طيب قال رحمه الله والأمانة. The second of the 10 character traits that he spoke about, or that he mentioned, is Al-Amana, which is translated as trustworthiness. On page 280, Sheikh said trustworthiness. And here, trustworthiness, here is talking about the entire religion. The entire deen is an amana, is a trust that the believer is commanded to carry out. There's no option for the Muslim or if they're going to practice their deen or not. Free will is there to practice the deen or not to practice the deen. But the person who takes their free will and they don't practice their deen, then there's a consequence for that. So in that regard, there is no option whether you're going to be obedient or not be obedient. Disobedience to Allah means that a person does the haram, is punishable, it's a sin, and a person can be punished by Allah. So in that meaning, there is no option on if on the deen or on not on deen. Because not deen or not practicing the deen means that a person, we open ourselves up to, number one, sin, and number two, being punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this case, the amana here, as he says further down, وَالْأَمَانَةُ بِمَعْنَاهَا عَامٌ تَتَنَاوَلُ الدِّينَ كُلَّهُ, that the amana, the trustworthiness here, includes everything from the religion. Everything from the religion. And to show how serious the amana is of the deen, he mentions that ayat where Allah said, إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَنْ يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَا مِنْهَا. Where Allah says that the amana was, and this is on page 280, we offered the amana, as it says, the trust, the moral responsibility, or honesty, all of the duties that Allah has ordained. Carrying that, it was offered to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they all declined to take on the trust. Somebody can trust you with something, and you be like, that's too much, I ain't going to fulfill it, right? I need to do something for me, you can't fulfill the trust, so you might deny it later. When it comes to carrying a religion and everything that goes with the deen, it was offered to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, they all denied it. They all denied it, they declined to bear it, they were afraid of it. They were afraid of what? Not upholding it. Not doing what they're required to do when they were entrusted with something. And then Allah said, but mankind accepted the trust, and mankind is unjust to himself and ignorant. This is to show how important the amana of our deen is, because eventually, if we want to see some serious change, we gotta get serious. The men and the women, the brothers and the sisters, really gotta get serious if we really want to see some change. If we're comfortable with our houseway stuff going, and it's casual and it's convenient to be Muslim at times, and then when it's not convenient, we don't really give any importance to the religion. If we're comfortable with that, then we shouldn't expect no major changes in front of us. If we want to see some major changes, then we need to get serious and see what, and understand the responsibility that's on us. Later, he says in another ayah where Allah broke down, Allah specified, as He said, في ناس والناس في ذلك ينقسموا إلى أقسام ثلاثة. There are three groups when it comes to who are the people who uphold the amana, the trust of implementing the religion, and who doesn't. There are three groups. Allah created us for worship, and He created us to obey Him, to be obedient. As Allah created us. Before Allah created us, we were nothing. We didn't have anything. Allah created us and gave us everything we need to live. Right? With that, everything He gave us from what we love and what we don't love. Right? From what we love. The trials that we go through, everything, right, is part of the dunya, the life that we live. Like, when it comes to this dunya, there are three groups of people. There are three groups of people. As Allah mentioned in the next ayah, which is in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah 73. Allah said, وَلَا يُعَذِّبُ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ وَالْمُشْرِكَاتِ وَيَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا, which is on page, that's the bottom of 280 and up on page 281. That Allah will punish the hypocrites, the male hypocrites and the female hypocrites. Allah will punish them. And the men and women who are the mushrikun, right? Those who worship other than Allah, those who disbelieve in Allah. And Allah will forgive and pardon the repentance of the believers, whether they're men or women. And Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. So in this verse, they is broken down into three groups of people, right? Allah will punish the munafiqun, the munafiqeen and munafiqat, the male and the female hypocrites. Those who, as it says, the first group, those who claim to preserve the trust on the outside. They claim on the outside that they're Muslims, but in reality, they really don't believe, right? Apparently, they look like Muslims. And that's all we're required to do regarding those people. If they look like Muslims and they say that they're Muslims on their tongue, that's all we have to go by. We can't look into a person's heart and say, oh, this person's really a hypocrite. They're not really Muslim. Right? How do we have the ability to do that? Except if the person was to tell you that they're not Muslim anymore, Allah protect us all. So He says the first group, those who claim to preserve the trust on the outside, but inside there is ruin and destruction. Right? That's the munafiq. At the inside, they really, really don't believe. But what's apparent to the people is that they're believers. That's why Allah said He will punish the male and female hypocrites, not just the male hypocrites, not just the female hypocrites. Allah said He will also punish the mushrik, the male and the female disbeliever, the one who worships other than Allah will be punished. It's a punishment. Hopefully, disbelief in Allah and disbelief in the Prophet ﷺ warrants a punishment, right? Just like belief in Allah and His Messenger warrants a reward. So He says the second group, Allah al-amana fi zahirihi wa batinihi. So the first group, they held up the amana, the trust, apparently. It looks like they deem it, as we said. It looks like they deem it. The second group, they don't hold the amana, not internally or externally. Meaning they don't believe and they don't put on a front as if they do believe. Right? The mushrikeen. Those who worship other than Allah, those who disbelieve in Allah. That's the second group. And then Allah said the third group is the group حَفِظَ الْأَمَانَ فِي الظَّاهِرِ وَالْبَاطِنِ. This is the group that those who preserve the trust, whether it's apparent, you can apparently see it from them, and what's on the inside. They truly believe in their hearts. These are the believers. These are the three groups that Allah mentioned when it comes to upholding the trust. The trust of what? Of carrying out and implementing Islam. There are people, and it is not our job to find out who they are, right? But there are people who are called hypocrites, right? They look like Muslims and they really don't believe. It's not our job to seek them out and try to pull the wool from over them, right? It's not our job to do that. But is it a group of people who do that? There's a group of people, and Allah spoke about them in the Quran. It's a surah named that from in the Quran. Right? Just like there are a group of people who sometimes people leave Islam. But what is that? Apostasy. Apostasy is real. It's not something that is uh, just spoken about in books and chapters written on how do the Muslims deal with the person who apostates from religion, which removes the idea that once a Muslim, always a Muslim, right? Once a Muslim, always a Muslim. That idea is not true. Islam has rules, Islam has beliefs, and if those rules are broken or if those beliefs are excluded or not believed, then a person is not considered a Muslim. Now, if they say they're a Muslim, then you can say anything you want to say, right? The person got the right to say anything you want to say. But when they stand before Allah, right, realistically, every person will be raised up based on their true belief. Like he says, وَمِنَ الْأَمَانَةِ حِفْظُ حُقُوقِ الْعِبَادِ والوفاء معهم فيما اؤتمنوا عليه من الأقوال والمصالح أو المنافع أو نحو ذلك. And this is basic Islam 101. This is basic Islam 101. Again, he said the trustworthiness is the entire religion. And that's on page 280. It says the trust in its general meaning includes all of the religion. Like, so from the religion is what's on page 281 now. Included in the trust from our deen, from Islam, what is on the Muslim is preserving the rights of the slaves and fulfilling what you have been entrusted with. Which, what does that mean? Preserving the rights of the slaves. Sometimes, a lot of times, people talk like this. You have to preserve the rights of one another. But what does that even mean? That means that family, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, your family has a right over you, meaning you have an obligation towards your family members, whether they're Muslim or they're non-Muslim, right? Whether they're close family members or, as we say, not so close family members. There's a right that you owe them. Neighbors have rights that we owe them. Our wives have rights that we owe them. The husbands have rights that we owe them. The children have rights that we owe them. The parents have rights that we owe them, right? The general people in the community have rights that are owed. The street, the road has a haq. The road has a right, meaning it is on us to fulfill the rights and give everybody what they deserve to get, right? Every mother, Islamically, every mother is owed a level of respect, whether she's Muslim or not, right? Her right, Islamically, is to be respected. That means we have to give our mothers respect. That's her right. Of course, if she tells us to do something that Allah commands us not to do, and we don't obey her or follow her in that. But generally, outside of the things that the Muslim is prohibited to do, the mother is owed. She has a right. That means it's on us to fulfill it. We have to give it. So yeah, everybody has rights around this. Now, understanding those rights is a different thing. If we don't understand it, it don't mean that we don't understand it. We don't know who don't have rights over us. That doesn't mean that those rights don't exist. It just means that we're ignorant. We don't know what we're doing. And we need to learn the basics of our religion. And that's why he says, from the trust is fulfilling, it says here, preserving the rights of the slaves. Well, who are the slaves? Who are the slaves here? The slaves of Allah. Huh? The who? The Muslims? Are the Muslims the only slaves of Allah? All the creation, everybody. Protecting everybody's rights is from our deen. Now, so that means you can't just violate nobody because they're not Muslim. We don't have the green light Islamically to do that, which used to be a practice. It used to be a practice that if they're not Muslim, so we can just take them, right? We can just take them. We can take them for bad because they're not Muslim. Islam don't allow us to do that. Islam does not allow us to do that. And that's why it says the slaves of Allah. And in general, all of the creation, in general, generally, every human being is a slave of Allah. Every human being was created, and they didn't create themselves, they were created. So therefore, they fall under the general meaning of a slave of Allah. So protecting and giving everybody what their due right was owed to them is from Islam. It doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not. It doesn't matter only because we are only going to be respectful to the Muslims. Islam doesn't teach us that. We're only going to give the Muslims what they deserve. And the non-Muslims, we're not going to give them that because they're not Muslim anyway. Islam doesn't teach us that. And this is why it says, preserving the rights of the slaves of Allah, fulfilling what you have been entrusted with. Fulfilling the trust. A person trusts you to do something Islamically. As a Muslim, we're supposed to do it. And again, the fact that we even have to say Islamically, right? Muslims, we live as Muslims. We shouldn't have to say Islamically, right? We live as Muslims. But he says, all the trusts have to be preserved. It says, and Allah will ask a person, I'm sorry, it says here, O Masalih, O Manafit, O Nahbidadika. And harmful should be kept away from people. So some things, and this is an important point, some things are a general benefit. There are things that are generally beneficial for human beings, right? And then there are things that are generally harmful for human beings. The Muslim is obligated to preserve that, to protect that also. So for example, on the corner of the corner where the bus stop, right? You know, the little I don't know what you call it, the bus stop, and they have a little the little shelter. Who benefits from that? Only the Muslims benefit from that? Everybody benefits from that. Clear? This is a general benefit for Muslims and non-Muslims. For humans, animals, it's a general benefit. The fact that everybody benefits from that, Islamically, the Muslim is required to protect that. Because who benefits? The Muslims benefit from it, and all human beings benefit from it. Islamically, as Muslims, we're required to protect those type of things. Meaning, and this is why it's not allowed to urinate in a place like that. Because once you urinate in a place like that, what happens? Nobody benefits from it, right? It's a general benefit that everybody benefits from. And the same thing is the opposite. If you were to urinate in a place like that, it's a general harm. It's not like you can urinate in the shelter where the bus stops and none of the Muslims are going to be bothered by it, only the non-Muslims will be. It's not going to work like that, right? It's a general harm where everybody is harmed. So things that are a general benefit for society, the Muslims are required to protect those general benefits. Clear? Things that are generally general harms for society, the Muslims are directed and commanded to stay away and try to keep those harms from harming people. And that goes a long way when it comes to, for example, especially in our time, like right now, when you have you have community meetings, right? You have a community meeting about gun violence. Is the gun violence only affecting the non-Muslims or is it affecting everybody? It affects everybody. It's a general meeting. Is it non-Muslims there at the meeting? Right? There are non-Muslims there, there are Christians there, there's Jews there, there's atheists there, but everybody's there for what? Worship? They're not there for no worship. It has nothing to do with worship. This has to do with preserving a general benefit for mankind. And the Muslims are required to, as Muslims, that's part of the amana. Part of the trust that we have as Muslims is helping the society we live in. Our problem is we think you can't talk, some of us think you can't talk to non-Muslims because that turns into interfaith. So they've taken something that has to do with worship or whatever they call it, they made that. So now you can't have a discussion with a Christian or a Jew about how we're going to stop gun violence in the city. How does that make sense? Islam, how does that make sense? What from the religion will prevent us from doing that? That's the question. We got to figure out, Islamically, why wouldn't we be able to talk to a Christian or a Jew and we suffer from the same problem? This has nothing to do with ibadah, nothing to do with worship. Muslim kids are being killed, Christian kids are being killed. We got a problem on our hands as a whole. From the amana is that this is a harm for everybody. So the Muslim is supposed to help stop their harm. Meaning we're not just trying to stop only Muslim kids from getting killed. We're trying to stop people from being killed at all, altogether. We don't say this Muslims don't believe, well, as long as it's not Muslims getting killed, we could be at school. No. Part of the amana, part of the trust of our deen is that the protection is for the society, mankind in general. But that part is not even translated in the book. I'm not sure. But this is right there where it says on 281, it says the people must preserve all of the trust, and Allah will ask them about this on the day of judgment. Before that, it says the Masalih or Manafit. The benefits, I'm sorry, not the harms. It actually says the benefits. Anything that's beneficial should be preserved. And those benefits could be a maslahat am. It could be a general benefit that not just Muslims benefit from, but the whole society benefits from. Later, he says after that, وَحَوَاسَ الْإِنسَانِ كُلُّهَا أَمَانَةٌ. He says, and this is important, you got the book here? You see that? Later, it says here, it's not in the book, y'all, it's not translated. It says here, حواس الإنسان كلها أمانة والله سائله عنها يوم القيامة. طيب. All right. Even if it's not translated, it makes sense if you look at it and listen to that. It says that the senses that we all have, the 5 senses we have, right, are all in a manner. Allah trusted us with our eyesight. Allah trusted us with our ears. Allah trusted us with our touch, right, our smell and our taste. These are all an amana that Allah trusts us with, that Allah is going to ask us about Yawm Qiyamah. And that's why the verse on page 281 says, "Inna as-sam'a wal basara wal fu'ada kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula." Verily, the hearing, the sight, and the heart of each of those, you will be questioned by Allah. On what? On the senses that Allah gave us, that Allah will question us on the day of judgment about what did we do with our eyesight? What did we look at? What did we watch on our phones, in our houses, on the computer, right? What do we allow ourselves to watch with the eyes that Allah gave us? That some people, from Allah's wisdom, He didn't give eyesight. From Allah's wisdom, He didn't give some people eyesight, right? Some people He didn't give the ability to hear from birth. No, right? Later, but Allah trusted us with eyes that we're supposed to do the right thing with. He trusted us and gave us the sense of hearing, and we're going to be questioned about that Yawm Qiyamah. And this is why we have to be careful about what we watch. Everything is not worth watching. Every video clip that goes around and goes viral is not worth watching. Some things are so evil, when it enters the heart, it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to shake it once you see it. Some images are so strong, once you see it, it's difficult for it to shake it off your heart. It keeps bothering a person. That's why you got to be careful about what you watch. Everything is not worth listening to. Every conversation is not worth listening to. It's possible we hear things and then it becomes a fitna, right? And it's difficult to shake, and you can't get it off of you. And then you might be tested with that for a long period of time. And that's why the fitna of music is so difficult to shake, because what music does to a person, and the reality of what music really is. We act like music ain't no big deal because that's what we come up on. But music is a big deal. Music is serious. They use music for therapy. That's how strong it is. Music is serious. Instruments are serious. Instrumentals. Instrumentals, man. We want to act like just because that's where we come from, it's okay. Nah. What is an instrumental? Anybody, we all come from music. Anybody know about music? When you hear a certain sound, it makes you feel a certain way. Hands down. And if we want to deny that, sometimes we don't want to be real, we want to deny that. Well, the doctors, that's what they say. That's why they use music therapy. They use music therapy. They play certain sounds of music in order to get a person in a certain type of mood. That's what the doctor said. I'm no doctor, but we know that from listening to music anyway. That's what it does. I think that's enough. R&B. Huh? I mean, that's the reality of it. That's why we have to be careful about what we listen to. Right now, if that door opens and a car arrived by the scene playing music 30 years ago, 20 years ago, right? You can remember the words like it was yesterday. That's a fitna. When it comes time to memorize Quran, we can't get an ayah, one verse. We struggle with verses for days. That's the fitna. And inside of that music, it can be talking about everything Allah told us to stay away from. And we can remember that from 25 years ago like it was yesterday. And then when we try to memorize Allah's words, we can't get a verse in a week, a month. We still working on 2 verses. To show the fitna that comes with music. That's why you gotta guard and protect what goes inside of you. Whether it's in your ears, whether it's what you see, whether it's what you eat, all that has to be guarded. And that's why Allah said in the Al-Thamaraat that the vision, the sight, the hearing in their hearts, the sight, the hearing in their hearts, each of those you will be questioned by Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allah later. He says after that, وَمَالُهُ أَمَانَ عِنْدَهُ يُسْأَلْ عَنْهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَوَلَدُهُ أَمَانَ. Also, from the trust of our religion, our deen, is that a person's wealth, what they spend their money on, we're going to be questioned about that. Later, children, we're going to be questioned about that. It will be trust. His wealth is a trust. And his children are a trust. We will be asked about both Yawm al-Qiyamah. Later, we say wealth, but for real, wealth. The money that you spend every day, and what you spend your money on, we're going to be questioned about. Right? And it's not, we can't look at the next person, though, because sometimes we assume, for example, if a rich person is not held to the same standards as a regular, average, everyday person financially. They don't live by the same standards. We all agree with that, right? We know that, right? That means somebody who has money, we say, we say, well, 100,000 of them is like $100, right? Okay, that's based on the money that they have, the wealth they've accumulated. So yeah, their spending habits are much higher than a regular everyday person who has a regular normal job, right? You can't put a millionaire in your bracket and tell them they can't spend their money because they're wasting. No, they're in a different bracket, right? Clear? They're in a different bracket of spending. So what's wasteful to them, or what's wasteful to you may not be wasteful to them, right? Based on the way they live. And this is why even in the chapter of marriage, when a man marries a woman, he's obligated to keep her at the standard she's used to living at. He's obligated to keep her at least at what she's used to. Clear? If she's from the projects, then anything above that, right? At the least. Right? Meaning, not wrong with this from the project. I'm making a point. If her income is at that level, right? Then you have to maintain her at that level, whether it's in the projects or somewhere else, right? The income has to be at that level. You have to maintain her, meaning you can't take her below what she's used to living at, right? What she's used to. And I'm using that for examples. I'm going to make a difference. A person that comes from, right, the suburbs, way out the sticks, where we know the price of living is way higher. You can't bring her and try to put her on the same person that lives in the inner city. A lower living cost, right? She's used to living a certain way. Now, what if you take a person from a lower living cost, right? Shady. I said the projects intentionally because I know how we think. I want to be clear what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say it's wrong coming from the projects. I want to be clear, right? The income level is a lot lower.
I got a project that I had, and I spent 200. But I got a project that's way worth more than the suburb.
Right.
Because it's a project.
Right.
So you can't say project.
Good. Right.
You got to say income.
The income level. The income level is
right.
The income level is a lot more specific, meaning it's a low income.
Right.
A person that comes from low income, you can't keep comparing to a person who comes from a high income situation. They're different. They're used to different things. So the one person might look at it like, okay, you coming from that income level, you should be spending like that. That's wasteful for you, but you can't put that on everybody else. So everybody's gonna be questioned according to their level, And this is why in that verse, the next verse is where Allah says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu takhunu Allah, la takhunu Allah wa rasulahu, wa takhunu amanatikum, wa antum ta'lamun wa'lamu annama amwalukum wa awladukum fitnah, wa anna Allah 'indahu ajrun 'azim," which is in Surah Al-Anfal. That's on 289, I think. I'm sorry. The bottom of 281. O you who believe, betray not. Betray not Allah and His Messenger, nor betray knowingly your amana, the things that you've been trusted with, and know that your possessions and your children are but a trial, a test, and surely with Allah is a mighty reward. Later, don't betray Allah. It says, don't betray Allah and don't betray your messenger. And don't betray the amana, the things that you weren't trusted with. Later. Allah said at the end of that verse, and know for sure that your money and your children are a test. Your money and your children are a test. They're a trial. Based on your income level, you're going to be tested. Right? It's a test on what we spend our money on. Based on how many children we have, it's a test for us. Some of us think the more children, the better, which is generally true. But not if they terrorize the neighborhood. If they terrorize the neighborhood, and they're not children that you're raising upright and being like, that could be a proof against you, Yom Kippur, because those children are a trust. Not just have a bunch of kids, right? And the kids are wild. People hate to see them coming, right? They terrorize the neighborhood, and everybody know they're your children. Everybody know that's the Muslim kids from down the street, and they tearing them. That's not something praiseworthy to be proud of, right? The praiseworthy thing is the children that, at the least, hopefully, that they make dua for us when we die, and hopefully that they're productive people in the society, and that they're righteous, upright, praying Muslims, that if we die the day of the morning, there'll be kids that'll pray for us, right? So the fitna of children and how many we can have, more and more and more, that's a fitna in itself. Because you can't just have kids and don't take care of them, which is another chapter that we need to deal with. Later, he says, ابتلاء وامتناحا وهل يؤدي ما اؤتمن عليه من مال أو ولد وغير ذلك. Later, he says all of this is from the test that is put on a person from Allah Jalla wa'ala. Will a person fulfill the trust? Will a person fulfill what they've been trusted by Allah when it comes to their children? It's a test. But Allah trusted people with money. Some people have, and this, we got to understand that because you're not rich, doesn't mean you're not responsible with the trust that Allah gave you for what you have. Because I am low income and I don't have it like that, that don't mean I can just blow money when I get it. Right? That don't mean when I get it, I can just blow it and just be happy and just be reckless with it. Right? I'm still responsible to do with my money and my wealth what is responsible, what a responsible person would do. Whether I'm rich or not, whether I'm low income, middle, or high, it don't make a difference. Right? Everybody's responsible for not being wasteful. Everybody. Nobody has a green light to be wasteful. Whether you're poor, you're middle, or you're rich, it doesn't make a difference. Everybody's responsible for not being wasteful. Now, some people have the test, and it's a little more difficult not to be wasteful because they have maybe access to more. Right? They have access to more, so the fitna of being wasteful might be a little more on them. Right? They might be tested with being wasteful because they have more access. But a person who has less access to things, they're a little more generally. The person who doesn't have much, they're a little more serious about what they have and what they lose. What can they afford to lose and what they can't afford to lose. But that doesn't mean that person won't be wasteful. Point is that nobody is exempt. Nobody's exempt from not being wasteful, no matter what class you come from as far as income. Like, he said after that, the third one, Al-Afaf, which is on page 282. What is chastity? It says chastity. The Shaykh said chastity. What is chastity? What's another word for chastity? Because I don't know nobody except us. Only people who talk like this and use these type of words are people who read these books, right? Like nothing. When a person goes to a new Muslim and they say, yes, you have to guard your chastity. And it's expected. We expect that she understands what that means. But what's another way to term that? How else could you tell her? What else could we say? Or at the least, even if we want to use that word, we got to make sure people understand the words that we're saying. So if you say chastity, you got to make sure the person understands what the word means. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't use another word, if you use a word, you should make sure that the person understands what that word means. Saajid? What else could we say for chastity? Huh? Say it again? Huh? Staying away from impermissible actions. It's a new Muslim. You say you gotta stay away from impermissible actions. Yeah, everything gotta be digested. If only a certain group of people you're talking to can digest it, that's a problem. Because the deen is for everybody. The deen is not just for a certain level of people. A person with a certain level of vocabulary is going to understand Islam, and if their vocabulary not on that level, they're not going to understand it. No, the deen is for everybody. What you say, sis? There's a mic up there, sis. Just turn it on so I can hear you because the AC running and all that. Say what? Good? You say good?
It says, guard your goodness. Guard your goodness.
Guard your goodness.
What's the word in Arabic?
So what? The word in Arabic is Al-Afaf. What would you say to a sister? What would you say? I'm just saying, it says pure, guard your purity. Saajid. Where? No. She can use that mic. It's a mic right there on the floor. Yeah, turn it on. Yeah. What would you say? You would tell a sister to guard her goodness? Your innocence? Okay, let me ask you, sis. If you told a new Muslim woman to guard her innocence, would she understand what you meant by that? Huh? I'm saying, because I'm trying to, like, if you're talking to a new sister, she doesn't know, and you told her, for example, guard your innocence, would she understand what's meant by that as far as what we mean by chastity? She wouldn't know? Oh, she wouldn't know. Play it. Well, let's go through it, and then we can figure out at the end how we need to explain it to people when we say chastity, right? Pure, guard your pureness. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm with you. You gotta make, huh? Guard your, what is, all right.
Everybody knows that.
Guard your private part. I know what's gonna understand that?
They know what their private part is.
Yeah, what is guard? What you mean guard my private part?
You gotta explain all of it.
Okay, I'm just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, you have to explain.
I mean, my point is sometimes we use words that me and you understand that because we got some background. You know what I'm saying? But somebody coming off the street, a new Muslim might not understand what you mean by guard. What does guard mean? What do you mean guard my private part? You understand what I'm saying?
You want girlfriend, you want boyfriend.
Oh, that's what you got.
You gotta go into it. You gotta go into it. The chances is
But yeah, he says chastity is to avoid the impermissible actions. Everything that's haram. So it's not just boyfriend and girlfriend, everything that's haram, right? And then he gets specific. It says sins and lewdness. Don't be lewd. Huh? Yeah. So being chaste is not just right. Staying away from sins, also not being lewd. And I'm that because I just want to make sure that we're using words that we're familiar with. Because why? If you're talking to people with words that they don't use, what you're saying doesn't mean anything. It means nothing if you say to a person, make sure you're not being lewd when you're outside. All right. It don't mean nothing if you don't know what lewd is, right? Or even simpler than that. If they don't know Islamically that something is a sin, and you tell them to stay away from sins, make sure you stay away from sins. If they don't know that Islamically that's a sin, it doesn't benefit them, right? If a person don't know that Muslims are not supposed to get tattoos, right? It's one of the major sins. Tattoos are the major sins. But a Muslim doesn't know that, right? How do you think they're going to stay away from it if they don't know it's a sin? And you can tell them every day, make sure you stay away from sins. Make sure you stay away from this. Make sure you stay away from this. Don't try to. But if they don't know what the Islamic connection is, it doesn't mean anything. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes the point is, sometimes the words we use, they got to make sense to the people we're talking to. Now, I'm talking about here, where we at. I could be wrong. I don't know people who really, sometimes some of the words that we translated, I just like to make sure we understand them where we at so we can on the same page. Or else it's not going to make sense. And the majority of the time, a lot of people don't like to say they don't understand. They'll just be like, inshallah, and not know what you're talking about. Later, if a sister doesn't know, or a new Muslim don't know, if they don't know that you're not supposed to have a boyfriend, or you're not supposed to have a girlfriend, how would they know to try to stay away from that if they don't know that that's a sin? You understand? So to say just the word sin, okay, that's like murder. I ain't gonna kill nobody, nothing like that, right? But there's other things that are sins also. That if a person don't know that the word sin like in that area doesn't really hold any importance to them. Later, he says to stay away from all the haram and all of the lewdness, any type of sin, anything that's haram, anything that the law said don't do, anything the Prophet said don't do, to stay away from. Those are impermissible. Those are not allowed Islamically. Any sin, anything that a person can be punished for in the hereafter, to stay away from. And Allah and the Prophet, so they tell whatever they tell us to stay away from. No, that's not right. Pause. Allah said in that verse right there on page 282, and let those who find not the financial means for marriage keep themselves chaste. Thank you, sir. Can you look that up? Yes. What does that mean? Those who don't have the money. Allah said, and let those who find not financial means, those who don't have the money for marriage, keep themselves chaste. Where's the chaste? Say it in the mic, sister, the air run, I'm sorry. What does that mean? If a person's sitting home reading, to refrain from things. So, let's apply it. Let those who find not the financial means for marriage to refrain from things. It gotta make sense. What does that mean? To refrain from things. What does it say? Definition. Y'all gotta use, now hold up, sis. I'm gonna have to grind on up. Y'all asked us to get the mic. We got the mic, that long cord and all that. Y'all, I mean, it's three, no, it's on. The three fans running and the air running, so I can't really hear what you're saying. But if you turn that mic on, it'll be a whole lot easier. This is Shay, talk into the mic. Inshallah, because sis, they don't have the answer up here. And you know how y'all usually have the answers when they, you know. What she said?
But chase and chastity is similar.
Okay.
Chase is basically not pertaining to sexual intercourse.
Sexual, all right, there we go. You gotta be clear. Sexual intercourse, cool. You can turn it up. Shukran, Jazakallah khair.
It is on.
It is? No, it gotta be turned up though. So now it makes sense. And let those who find not the financial means for marriage keep away from sexual intercourse. That makes sense, don't it? Like, that means a person is guarding their chastity to protect yourself. Why? Because Islamically, sexual intercourse is preserved is only for the spouse, people that are married. Like, until Allah enriches them of His bounty. What does that mean? And I'm doing this, y'all, because it could be a person at home and they just read this. When they're home, right? It says, until Allah enriches them of His bounty. What does that mean? Stay away from those who do not find financial means for marriage until you're able to what? How would you be able to marry? Huh? You're into religious people? What is provisionally? You can't be talking to people like that, man. You cannot, yeah. And so Allah give them enough money. You're not talking to people like, if you said to a brother, man, when you get the provision, inshallah. Come on, I hate from you, I mean, it's Philly, man. People don't, unless it's me. Unless it's me. I could be wrong. I don't know people that's like, that talk like that. Like people, provisions. We can't, no. Like, until you get the money. Until Allah give you the money. If you don't have the money to support a woman to pay for it, like you can't, you know what I mean? And to make it make sense. A new Muslim person has no background. The people who got background, you can say that. Provisions from the bounty. But if a person don't have no background though, in that type of language, they might not understand what you're talking about. And if they don't understand what you're talking about, it's not that what you're saying not important. I just don't understand what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, he says after that, which is number 4, well, hayat, which is shyness, to be shy. Is shyness a good trait or a bad trait? Is this something good? Is this something good? There was a time, huh? There was a time where shyness was not something good. And a lot of people do this when they're kids, as children. They want their children to do something, they tell them, don't be shy, right? So what does that mean? Is all shyness good? Huh? Is all shyness good or is all shyness bad? It depends. When is shyness not good? Good. Learning. When you learning, you can't be shy to ask a question. You don't know. How you gonna get the information? You just shy to open your mouth and say something. And that's when they say a closed mouth don't get fed. Right? A closed mouth don't get fed. Like that type of shyness that you're too shy to ask a question when you don't know something, and you keep yourself blocked out. You box yourself out because you say, I'm shy, I don't really want to ask questions. You put yourself in a harmful situation because you're shy. In that case, that shyness is not something that's good Islamically. The shyness here, as he's going to get into the shyness that he's talking about here, this is on page at the top of The bottom of 282 and the top of 283. Shyness. Al-Haya'u says, وَخُلُقٌ عَظِيمٌ وَوَصْفٌ كَرِيمٌ يَتَحَلَّى بِهِ الْمُؤْمِنُ. That every believer, every person, somebody has to reword this. It says, this is a great character trait and noble attribute for the Muslim to adorn himself with. Right? This is a noble attribute for the Muslim to adorn himself with. What does that mean? It's a good way. And I'm saying this because our assumption is, we assume that the reader, it's assumed that everybody understands the term adorn yourself with something. Adorn yourself with this. To make yourself look good?
I wouldn't say look good, but
Like, that's cool.
yeah.
Beautify yourself.
Yeah, beautiful.
To beautify yourself, to make yourself better. Shake. It's a good, play it. It's a good way to get dressed with shyness. A hip way too.
Hip is what they use for nobleness then. Or he hip, so everybody look up to that.
Okay, it's a hip way to get dressed. Now the shyness, he won't get into the details of what shyness means. To beautify yourself with something, make yourself look better. I'm gonna ask y'all, brothers, what's a good form of shyness that men generally lack?
I can tell his wife how much money he got.
Not in it. All right, let me rephrase the question. It don't have nothing to do with us.
Okay.
What is something that when men see, the type of shyness men see, and it's always praiseworthy? And a woman. Right? Is that true? So, I'm not saying today, Shay. I'm just saying, generally, is that true? Huh? Would you agree with that?
I was asking.
No, the fact that you say it by itself. Meaning, if men see a shy woman, is that generally a good characteristic? Huh? What you saying, Shay? I'm not talking about specific people, I'm saying generally. Generally, men, they say a woman who has some shyness to her. Generally, that's not a good thing? Why not?
They call it playing games. Most people don't want playing.
What you mean playing games?
She's a shy woman.
Shy don't mean playing.
But that's what it would be. Nature. Men, she's shy. She's playing.
Do you relate shyness to plainness? Oh, all right. Okay, all right, that's different shit. All right, my bad. That's my bad.
In our time.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
generally, not 100%, not just 100%, but generally, shyness is a characteristic that men is attractive.
Yeah.
And the opposite is the same for men. If she's loud and all in the out there, we say she in the way, that's like, right? And the opposite fits. If she's shy, it's a little more attractive, right? طيب. He says, إذا نزع الحياء من المرء أثاره الخير. If the trait, the description of shyness is removed from a person, he says that the goodness is removed with that shyness removed. The goodness is removed from a person with that shyness. The shyness by itself stops people from doing certain things. Why? Because it's embarrassing. I'm ashamed to embarrass my people to do that. I ain't gonna embarrass y'all like that. I'm gonna be chill, even though I want to. Right? I'm not gonna embarrass you like that. So that shyness prevents us from doing certain things. And when the shyness is removed, when there's no shyness, then people do what? Whatever they want. When there's no shyness, people do whatever they want. This is on page 283 at the top. It says that shyness is removed from the person, he will be devoid of good, and he will not be concerned with the evil or corruption he commits. Based on what? Having no shyness. Right? And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith that comes after, إِنَّ مَمَا أَبْرَقَ النَّاسِ مِنْ كَلَامِ النُّبُوَّةِ الْأُولَى إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. From the first speech of the prophets, that the prophets used to say, that reached the people is, the prophets used to tell their people, if you feel no shyness, do as you wish. A person with no haya, no shyness, they won't do anything. Right? They do anything because they have nothing blocking them. There's no shyness to prevent them from doing anything. Right? Whereas if a person has shyness, they're more concerned about possibly their reputation. It means something. Embarrassing their family, embarrassing the people they're with, not going against the norm of the people. All of that's from haya. All of that's from shyness. Later, he said the greatest form of shyness is that a person has shyness of Allah wa ta'ala, Khaliq al-Khalq al-Ajma'in, the one who created everything. That a person is shy in front of Allah. This is the greatest form of shyness, because we have shyness when we shy like we know. Right? I don't like everybody looking at me, that type of thing. I don't want too much attention on me. Right? People just naturally like that. But the greatest form of shyness is that a person doesn't want, that a person is shy before Allah. And he says, أَلَّا يَرَاكَ اللَّهُ حَيْثُ نَهَاكَ. That you're shy for Allah to see you doing something that He said don't do. That's a form of shyness. Right? We'd be worried about people seeing us. Somebody might record us and post it on the internet. Right? But in reality, the greater form of shyness is that you don't want Allah to see you doing something. Allah sees everything. They like to hide. You don't want Allah to see you doing something that He said don't do. And this is a form of shyness. He said, فَتَكُونْ فِي كُلِّ وَقْتِكَ حَيًّا مِنْ رَبِّكَ. But a person should be, in every situation, they should have shyness from Allah. And that should be a prevention from doing certain things. That I know Allah is watching. I don't want to do anything that's going, Allah said don't do it. I know Allah is watching. That's a form of shyness. But and that makes a person, that forces a person to encourage them to stay away from haram, not to go to certain places. That even encourages a person to stay away from the things that are disliked. Stay away from the things that are disliked. It's from shyness. Not that it's haram, but I don't even want nobody thinking. I'm not even going down there because I don't want nobody thinking I was coming out of the bar. I don't want nobody thinking I was coming from the party, so I'm going to go down the other block. Can they drive down that block? Yeah. But I'm going to stay away from that because I don't even want nobody thinking that. Right? And that comes where it says, مِنَ الْحَيَاءِ مِنَ الْعِبَادِ. Al-Hayat min al-Ibad. So you got the shyness of dealing with the people, and then you have the shyness of Allah. When it comes to the shyness of Allah, it says, أَنْ يَحْفَظَ بَطْنَهُ وَجَوْفَهُ مِنْ إِدْخَالِ الْحَرَامِ. It is also from being shy. Is the hadith at the bottom of 283. To protect your senses and your limbs. So the person also has to protect their stomach. And the hadith at the bottom. ولكن الاستحياء من الله حق الحياء أن تحفظ الرأس وما وعاه. It says the shyness from Allah, in the true sense, is to protect your head from and what it contains. Protect your head. What does that mean? To protect your head. What you put in your head, and how do you put things in your head? What you hear, what you see. This is from shyness, as you protect that. You're paying attention to what you're looking at and to what you're listening to. But then the hadith, the Prophet said after that, and وَتَحْفَظُ الْبَطْنِ وَمَا حَوَاهُ. And to protect your stomach and what it includes, which means, how do you protect your stomach? You watch what you eat. What means what? Watch what you eat. What does that mean? There you are. Eating things that are haram. Eating from haram money. Everything that goes in our mouth that we drink it, whether we drink water, juice, whatever we're drinking, that it should be from halal. Nothing haram. And if we know that somebody bought it haram, that it's stolen, we shouldn't drink it. If we know somebody stole the food, there's money we shouldn't eat from that. That's from protecting what goes inside your body, protecting the stomach. Like, and then the Prophet ﷺ said after that, and reflect upon death and the trial. Reflect upon death. It says, وَمِنْ أَرَادَ I'm sorry. وَتَتَذَكَّرَ الْمَوْتِ وَالْبَلَاءِ. It's to reflect and think about death and the trial after death. This is also from Al-Hayat, shyness from Allah, that a person reflects and thinks about. You might not wake up tomorrow. There's no guarantee that we're going to wake up tomorrow. And everybody that we know and love wake up and they have to carry on with the rest of their day. And it's never done, as people say. And that's from the wisdom of burying the deceased quickly, is that the burden is lifted off the rest of the family once they put the body in the ground. Until the body is not in the ground, it's a burden on people. It's not over. It's over, but it's over when the body is buried in the ground. There's no guarantee that any of us, no guarantee that we wake up tomorrow. There's no guarantee that we make it home tonight. So to reflect upon death, reflect about death and dying, and what happens after death, and being sat up in the grave, and right, all of that is from hayat from Allah, and that forces a person, like many of the Salaf said, that forces you to straighten up. Understanding what comes after death, it should encourage a person to get tight now. It should encourage a person to tighten up now. And then the Prophet ﷺ said after that, and whoever desires, whoever is looking forward, it says whoever desires, whoever is looking forward to the after, the hereafter, and the reward that's with Allah, then they stay away from the glitter of this world. The glitter of this world, hayat al-dunya, the zina of the world, the beautiful things in this dunya. It doesn't mean that haram. But a person who sees the hereafter more important, the things in this world become less important. It's not no big deal like that. And that's why you just see people comfortable with very little. They have very little, but they're comfortable. It's not a burden on them that they don't have what other people have, right? Because their eyesight is on the reward in the hereafter, right? The reward in the hereafter is greater. He says, so Allah has something. Whoever looks forward to meet Allah on the last day, then they leave off the zinat al-dunya. And this is why many of the Salaf used to not just, of course, stay away from haram, but they will go to the extent they will stay away from things that were permissible. Even if it's permissible, they will stay away from it. Why? Because something that's permissible is allowed, Islamically is allowed. But some could be permissible and they could distract you from Allah. Too much of it could be a distraction. Too much of your wife or your husband could be a distraction. Too much of your children and trying to please your children all the time can be a distraction. Right? It's a fitna. Right? Too much of something that's mubah can be a distraction. That's why many of the celebrations should stay from. Of course, they would stay away from haram, but even the things that were allowed, right? They would do the obligatory, they would do the sunnah. They would stay away from the haram, and they would stay away from the things that are disliked. But on top of that, they would stay away from many things that were allowed. Why? Because even those things could take you away from Allah's dhikr. Like we said, the last thing is that enters when it has to do with shyness is البعد عن المعاملات السيئة والتصرفات المشينة الأخلاقيات المذمومة فإنها كلها تتنافى مع الحياة. We will stop here, inshallah. He says here, and this is important, hopefully this. He said also included in this is to be being shy when it comes to people, right? How by avoiding evil interactions with them. That when you deal with people, that you deal with them and you're fair. You're not trying to get over on everybody. You're not trying to get over on people. That's not fair. Islamically, that's not from hayat. Right? That you're trying to get over on people and trying to get over, that's not the Islamic adab. The Muslim is not supposed to carry yourself like that. Huh? He says, secondly, avoiding having evil character. This is also hayat with the people. That sometimes we got bad habits. Everybody got a bad habit, right? That you don't let that habit out on people. That's between you and Allah. But not that you come deal with people with that bad habit. Right? That's from hayat. That you don't want to deal with people and have bad, that you're known to have a bad reputation based on the way you carry yourself and the way you behave. Is that all of this is included in shyness? And inshallah, we'll stop there until next week unless there's any questions. If there's no questions, we'll start next week with the next one, which is courage. As Murphy said, not being a coward. No slime, jellyfish. Saajid, you're done? No questions? There's no questions, stop there. On page 284. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم.